The
I
doctor
told him I
didn't
wouldn't
even
be
look me in
silenced,
the
not
eye when he
anymore.
said it. You're
After
not
all these
mentally
years,
fit to
the truth
manage your
had to
own
come out,
affairs.
no matter the
I sat
cost.
there in the paper gown, hands clenched in my lap, pretending the tear sliding down my cheek was just from the lights overhead. But this wasn't a diagnosis. It was a setup. Because 2 days earlier, while I was rinsing his bedpan and setting out his medication, my husband, the man I'd spoon-fed through his so-called recovery, had signed over our home, our savings, even my mother's pearls, to a woman named Lisa, a caregiver with a fake nursing license and a P.O. box registered under her name. They called me paranoid, emotional, unstable, but they forgot. I kept records. Every crushed pill, every quiet betrayal, every motel receipt stuffed in his jacket pocket. And when a woman's whole life has been built in silence, she doesn't scream when she's betrayed. She documents. And when she's done, she doesn't ask for justice. She delivers it. I wasn't always this woman, the one filing medical records into a folder marked exhibits, the one whispering her story into a microphone because some truths would split a family dinner in half.
I told him I wouldn't
There was
be
a time
silenced, not
when I
anymore.
was just
After all
Linda,
these years, the
wife
truth
of 40
had to
years,
come out, no matter
mother
the
of
cost.
2, retired elementary school teacher who kept a tidy pantry and bought paper towels in bulk. I wasn't flashy, but I was consistent. I packed Hung's lunch every morning, even after he stopped working. I remembered his doctor's appointments better than he did. I even sent Christmas cards to his siblings, though they never remembered mine. When he had the stroke, it was a Tuesday. I heard the coffee mug shatter before I heard him hit the floor. From that moment on, I became his full-time nurse, driver, accountant, cook, and errand girl. We burned through our savings fast. I sold my car, took out a line of credit, under my name, of course, because everything official, still his. And I didn't complain, because that's what you do when you love someone. At least that's what I believed. Even when he forgot my birthday, even when he flinched when I touched his shoulder, like I was a stranger in his house, even when I found a lipstick-stained washcloth tucked in the laundry and it wasn't mine, I told myself, he's not well, he doesn't mean it. But deep down, I felt it. Something had shifted, and it wasn't just the stroke. It was the way Lisa looked at me, the way she lingered after her shifts, the way he started smiling more when she was around, and less when I was. I wanted to believe it was just stress, but then came the signature, and a betrayal I didn't know how to name, yet. They say caregiving takes a toll. What they don't tell you is, it doesn't always show up as exhaustion. Sometimes it shows up as invisibility. After the stroke, my world shrank down to a pill organizer, a blender for soft foods, and a calendar filled with follow-up appointments. I slept with one ear open. I tracked bowel movements like they were Wall Street reports. My hair thinned, my blood pressure spiked. I missed my own mammogram, but I didn't notice, not really, because I was too busy noticing him, his moods, his appetite, his resentment. Hung wasn't a grateful patient. He'd get irritated when I hovered, then angry when I gave him space. He called me too much on Monday, not enough by Wednesday. Still, I kept showing up. I told myself he was frustrated, not unkind, wounded, not willful. I thought love looked like sacrifice, but looking back, it looked more like slow erasure, and somewhere along the way, I stopped being his wife and became his liability.
After all
One
these
night,
years,
I found a stack of mail hidden in the
cost.
cabinet above the fridge. Bills, statements, letters I'd never seen before. Some were from the bank. One was from a lawyer, all addressed to him, none shared with me. I stood there barefoot in my kitchen, reading page after page with shaking hands. The line of credit I'd opened, he'd increased it without telling me, transferred funds, changed passwords, and Lisa, she was listed as an authorized contact on his primary accounts. I laughed, out loud, just once. It sounded foreign. That laugh was followed by something else, a cold, sinking certainty. This wasn't miscommunication. This was intentional. He had waited until I was too worn out to notice, until my life revolved around prescriptions and pharmacy runs, until my world got so small that even betrayal could hide in plain sight. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, he said I seemed scattered, that I was forgetting things. He said it in front of Lisa, and Lisa nodded. That was the first time I felt afraid. Not for him, for myself. It started with a phone call. The bank flagged a transaction.
I told him I wouldn't
something
be
about a
silent,
change
not
in
anymore.
legal authority
After all
tied
these
to our
years,
joint
the truth
account.
had to come out,
The woman
no
on
matter
the
the
line
cost.
asked, "Are you still the primary contact on this file, ma'am?" I remember gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, watching the kettle scream behind her voice. I thought I was, I said, but I wasn't. A week later, an envelope arrived by certified mail. Inside, a legal document, 2 pages, notarized, power of attorney, signed by Hung, granted in full, to Lisa. Not me, not his wife of 40 years, but the caregiver with the soft voice and fast hands who had slowly taken over my home without even raising her voice. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe he didn't understand what he signed. Maybe someone pressured him. But then I looked closer. His signature was crisp, his handwriting steady. There was a note scribbled in the margin. Linda's overwhelmed. Lisa will manage things from here. Overwhelmed. That word kept ringing in my ears like a siren I couldn't shut off. All those times he told me I looked tired, that I should rest, that I was too forgetful, too scattered. He wasn't expressing concern. He was building a case. And he'd handed the final verdict
I told him I wouldn't
to
be
a woman
silenced,
I
not
barely
anymore.
knew. When I
After
confronted
all these
him,
years,
he
the
didn't
truth
yell.
had to come out,
He didn't
no matter
even
the
look
cost.
guilty. He just leaned back on the couch, turned up the volume on the TV, and said, "You've had enough on your plate. Let someone else handle things for once." And just like that, I understood. This wasn't a betrayal born of confusion or weakness. It was a decision, a deliberate one. He waited until I was exhausted, isolated, and invisible. Then he erased me with a pen. And what's worse, he made me doubt my own mind in the process. After the power of attorney, things moved quickly, too quickly. The house bills started going to a different address. The credit card got declined at the pharmacy. And when I called the bank to ask why, I was told I was no longer authorized to view that information. I hung up. I don't remember crying. I remember silence, the kind that buzzes in your ears when something breaks, but you're too stunned to hear it. Lisa suggested I see someone, a specialist. "You've been under a lot of stress," she said, smiling gently. "She's not herself lately," Hung added, without looking at me. So I went, to a doctor I didn't know, in an office they picked, with intake forms I
told him
barely
I wouldn't be
understood.
silenced,
The
not
session
anymore.
was short,
After
too
all
short.
these years,
the
the
doctor
truth
didn't
had
ask
to come
much,
out, no matter the
mostly
cost.
nodded, took notes. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. Patient exhibits signs of cognitive decline consistent with early-stage memory disorder. Recommend limiting access to financial and legal responsibilities until further assessment. It wasn't a diagnosis. It was a sentence. And suddenly, I wasn't just locked out of my accounts. I was locked out of my own mind. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors looked at me differently. Even my daughter, when I told her what was happening, paused before answering. "Maybe you just need rest, Mom." That pause hurt more than the words, because it meant she was wondering. And then I wondered too. Was I really losing it? Was I making this up? Or was this exactly what they wanted? I didn't tell anyone at first. Not about the letter. Not about the diagnosis. Not about how I had started second-guessing the names of people I'd known for years. Instead, I folded it into my purse, right behind my driver's license and the photos of my grandchildren, and I carried it like a bruise. But then something happened. I couldn't sleep one night, not because of worry, because of rage.
I told him
quiet,
I wouldn't be
clean
silenced,
rage.
not anymore.
It sat in
After
my
all
chest
these
like a
years, the truth
coiled
had to
wire.
come out, no
Not
matter the
loud,
cost.
not dramatic, just sharp. So I got out of bed, opened my laptop, and started Googling. Cognitive decline misdiagnosis, elder legal rights, second psychiatric opinion, Florida. It took me 3 hours, but by sunrise I had an appointment. New clinic, new doctor, out of town. I didn't tell Hung. I told him I was going to visit my sister. Lisa offered to drive me. I declined. I brought every document, the original letter, the power of attorney papers, even the sticky note I found taped to the fridge that said, "Let Lisa handle meds, less stress for everyone." I didn't say much during the exam. This doctor asked real questions, looked me in the eye, didn't rush. When I told her about what had been happening, the financial changes, the appointment setups, the whispering between my husband and Lisa, she didn't call me paranoid. She took notes. Then she paused, and she said, "You're not losing your mind. You're being managed." 3 days later, I got a report in writing. No evidence of cognitive decline. Patient is alert, coherent, and shows no signs of neurological impairment. Recommend full autonomy be restored immediately. I read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not from sadness, from recognition. For the first time in months, I felt real. I felt seen. And just like that, the fog started to lift. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't confused. I was cornered. And now I had paper too. I didn't storm into the house waving papers. I didn't yell or throw anything. I just waited. 2 days later, Lisa left the house to pick up supplies. I took that time to scan everything. My new medical report, the power of attorney, the old letter that had labeled me as unfit. I attached them all to one clean email. Subject line, re-evaluation request, legal status of Mrs. Linda Carter. Recipients, the family lawyer, the bank, the credit union, and the courthouse clerk handling our property paperwork. No dramatic message, just the facts. And the facts were enough. By the end of the week, I got a call. "Mrs. Carter," the voice said, "we've reviewed the documents. The power of attorney has been suspended pending further investigation. Your full legal rights have been reinstated." I didn't say much, just thank you. Then I sat at the kitchen table and
I told him I
exhaled
wouldn't be
like
silenced,
I hadn't
not
in
anymore.
months. But that
After
wasn't
all
the
these
end,
years, the
because
truth had to come
consequences
out,
ripple.
no matter the
The
cost.
lawyer called Hung. I didn't hear the conversation, but I heard the tone shift after. The TV stayed off for once. He sat at the edge of the couch, holding the phone in both hands, not saying a word. That evening, Lisa showed up with a grocery bag. She saw me at the kitchen table, papers stacked neatly beside a fresh cup of coffee. She didn't smile. She didn't say a word, just looked down, then left, for good. The next day I got another email, this time from the bank manager. "We regret any oversight in handling your accounts. Attached is your full access report. Let us know if you wish to update beneficiaries." I stared at the screen. For months, I had been treated like a ghost in my own life. Now, I was back on paper, back in the room, back in control. And funny enough, no one apologized. But they didn't have to, because silence this time meant they finally saw me. The morning after Lisa left, I stood in the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. Just me. No pills to sort, no schedule to manage, no one calling my name from the other room. The silence was different this time, not the kind that hurts, but the kind that feels earned. I
told
walked
him I
around the
wouldn't be
house slowly,
silenced, not
like I was
anymore.
visiting someone
After
I
all
used to
these
know.
years, the
The
truth
laundry
had to
room,
come out,
the
no
back
matter the
porch,
cost.
my little sewing corner I hadn't touched in months. There was dust on everything, but it was my dust. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was trespassing in my own life. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out a notebook, and wrote one line. I was never crazy. I was just too quiet for people who needed me silent. Then I underlined it, twice. And in that moment, I didn't need an apology. I didn't need a grand gesture. I just needed myself, fully, wholly, present again. Because here's the thing they never tell you. Sometimes survival isn't loud. It's not a speech. It's not even revenge. Sometimes survival looks like a woman pouring her second cup of coffee in a house she no longer has to explain herself inside. And maybe that's the real victory. Not the paper, not the fallout, but the return to self. People ask me now if I ever got an apology from Hung, from Lisa, from the system that nearly erased me. The answer? No. But here's the better question. Did I need one? Because maybe the real power isn't in being acknowledged. It's in refusing to disappear. So let me ask you, what would you do if someone tried to write you out of your own story? Would you shrink? Would you scream? Or would you quietly, steadily take the pen back? If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever been gaslit, erased, or underestimated, leave a comment, tell your truth, or just type, "I'm still here." Because sometimes saying that out loud or in silence is its own kind of revolution. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. They might not say it, but they might be waiting to feel seen again.